Dragi gledaoci, dobrodošli u još jednu epizodu emisije Diplomata. Moj današnji sagovornik je njegova ekscelencija Vilijem Montgomeri, bivši ambasador Sjedinjenih Američkih Država u Beogradu, ali i koautor knjige Nediplomatski život koji je pisao sa svojom suprugom Lynn Montgomeri. Mr. Montgomery, thank you for joining us today. It's a pleasure to meet you and have the opportunity to speak with you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Now, first things first, we have to begin with the book. You chose a very specific title. It is called Undiplomatic Life, or Nediplomatski život for our viewers in Serbia. What does this phrase mean to you personally, and how does it reflect the time that you've spent here in Serbia?
Well, the thing is, the typical diplomatic life that you think of, your audience thinks of, is sort of boring, of having diplomatic parties, being quiet, etc. And I think that Lynn and I had a very different approach than that. It was a far more active approach, far more interaction with the citizens of the country, and trying to do projects and things. So we were more active. So it was not the normal diplomatic boring lifestyle that you see so often.
So it was not stuck to the office, but rather even to the people in the streets as well.
Yes.
Now, how did co-authoring this book with Lynn shape its emotional and narrative depth of the book, especially in recounting political and personal crises?
We had fights about once every hour.
So it wasn't an easy task.
Here's the difference, okay? I had certain jobs that my government asked me to do, objectives, goals. And I was focused on those goals and meeting them. And I would work with sort of whoever I had to achieve these things. Lynn, on the other hand, I would say, oh, I'll have nothing to do with that person. I don't like that person. That person is a hypocrite. That person is not interested. So she had a more personal approach than I did. So that led to disagreements.
And maybe that personal touch is what the book exactly needed as well, yes.
I think that's exactly right, yes.
Now, as the book's description explains, you and Lynn write with a strong sense of responsibility towards the truth. What truths, in your perspective, about Serbia's transition period do you feel are still being avoided or even distorted today?
I think it's very important that that period be understood by your citizens, particularly people who are too young to be involved in it. We had one interview yesterday with a young woman who was born in 2003, and so they don't know, and so I think it's very important that the events of that time be really understood. And there's a lot of people who have their views, and we have ours, and we had our experiences. Others had very different experiences. So it's not like we think we are presenting the
universal truth, yes.
It's our truth and what we experience. And let me give you an example of how that is. Say you take the war with Croatia, and you have Serbs who lived in Croatia who were expelled or left. They came back here, and you have actually Croats who had been in that area before, who actually were refugees in their own country. My point is that if you take that situation and you're looking, say, at Operation Storm, and you have Serbs who are now here from that area, and you have Croats who had been also expelled from that area as refugees in their own country. They each have their own truth about that operation. That's very different than one another.
And it's discussed even today.
And it's even discussed today, and they both have their own truth. It's true. And I think our book tries to give our view of things like that.
Absolutely.
Yes, and I also say that I was motivated by the show Sabo on television, because I saw a lot of things presented there that actually were not accurate. and I wanted to have our view
So this
presented.
was the initial push for writing the book.
Yes, exactly right.
I understand. Now, in your view, what distinguishes a diplomat's account of history from the one of a historian or maybe a participant of the time? Where do you draw the line between strategic narrative and personal testimony?
Yeah, that's exactly it. A historian might look at a long view, 200 years, and give the facts, whereas a participant has a personal view that's narrower, focusing on that person. So it's a very different approach, and I think we tried to be somewhere in the middle.
The middle is the golden ratio.
Yes, because again, an individual can have some really terrible personal experiences that for the historian may be overlooked, and we tried to bridge that gap as best we could.
I understand. Now, when you write memoirs, it inevitably involves making choices, what things to leave in and what things to leave out as well. What has guided your editorial and Lynn's creative process during the writing of this book?
Well, the first thing is there's some things that they were too sensitive in terms of my government that we couldn't talk about. So you leave that out. But then also we wanted to focus on the major events in our life during this time and our view of it. That's what it is. That's what it is. I think that if you read the book, you'll see that I have a more direct approach, and Lynn has more one with emotion and feelings.
I understand. So it really is the perfect combination there. Now, in moments of such political transitions, diplomats often walk a fine line between an observer and someone who influences the situation. How have you personally walked that fine line during post-5th October Serbia then?
I didn't. No, in the sense that you're absolutely correct, that a typical diplomat would observe and report. And leave it at that. And we did more than that. We participated. And I don't mean that we took anything over, but we were on the streets. And I'll give you a classic example. We were in Bulgaria when protests started to bring down the communist government. And there was going to be a very, very big protest around the Communist Party headquarters in the center of Sofia. And we heard about this protest, and it was going to be huge. And we decided we had to go, not to drive it, but to see it, to see history. And at the same time, there was a dinner for ambassadors someplace. And Lynn called to cancel, to say, we can't come. And they said, well, why? And we said, well, there's this protest. And,
history is happening.
and they were all shocked. All these other ambassadors were shocked. So history was literally being made. The Communist Party building was being burned and sacked. It was history. Bulgarian history was changing. And these ambassadors were having dinner. And I think that's the contrast. And so we wanted to be where history was being made, not at some diplomatic dinner party.
And would you say that today's ambassadors are maybe even too isolated from the street?
Yeah, I think a lot are. I mean, it's sad to say, but you would think when you join the Foreign Service of the United States that your goal would be to be in other cultures, to learn about other peoples, etc. And all too often, we found a lot that were content to just enjoy the benefits of being a diplomat and having a decent house and associating with other diplomats or other Americans. It was hard to understand, but there was a lot of those. And our approach was very different. From the time that I first came to Belgrade, I tried to spend as much time as I could with Yugoslavs. And it was Yugoslavs then, as you know. And I think I gained a lot of knowledge by that. I must admit that a foreigner will never have the knowledge that a 10-year-old citizen has about a country. There's just too many things you don't know.
So it's an impossible task.
Yeah, I remember at one point when I was perplexed that one of the people I was dealing with did something that seemed a little irrational. And I found out he was doing it for his godfather, or cum.
Cum, yes.
And that was the reason. But until then, I had never thought that this was an important fact to know. And it's things like that. There's so many things like that that you will never really know. Absolutely. And all you can do is strive. We've lived now in Croatia for more than 20 years. But I know very, very well there's still a lot of things about Croatia I don't understand. Foreigners never will. All we can do is try.
Now, in the past, you described offering strategic guidance to Serbia's new leadership at the time. How did you ensure that your guidance was more of a partnership offer rather than a pressure?
Actually, the truth is, sometimes it was partnership, sometimes it was advice, and sometimes it was pressure.
So it was a bit of both.
It was everything. And a classic example being, I had a very great relationship with Zorana Đinđića. We actually had houses right next to each other in Dedinje. And so actually there's a little gate, alleyway, and on the other side another gate. So we could go to each other's houses without going through the main entrance, using cars or anything like that. So we saw a lot of each other.
What were your impressions of Zorana Đinđić?
I admired him tremendously. We got along very well. He had a very good mind. And what was really good is that he would say, I can do this. I can't do that. And we would have that sort of relationship. And it was a very good relationship. But he was a very compartmentalized person, which means that he would talk with me about something, say in the health area, that we would like his government to do. He'd say, okay. Sometimes he would forget to tell the health minister. So,
but in his head, this was
it was okay. But so he was compartmentalized. But I value my relationship with him a lot. The most difficult part was the Hague Tribunal, because for the United States of America, rightly or wrongly, this was issue number one, which actually was sort of crazy, because if you look at the founding of the Hague Tribunal, it said that the number one goal is to try to increase stability and peace and cooperation in the region. And in fact, we found the Hague Tribunal to be a huge problem for the new democratic governments in Croatia and in Serbia, that instead of dealing with all the other numerous problems that these countries had, Carlo Del Ponte from The Hague would come through still in 2001, 2002 with new indictments. I mean, in my view, all the indictments should have been made in the first couple of years after the end of the war. And that's it. And then you would know who they were. But the way it was done was they kept investigating and kept coming up with new indictments. So every time she came, she possibly might have new indictments to issue. And it created a climate in these countries of how many people are going to be sent to The Hague. And this was one of the contributing factors to Đinđić's assassination, because there was great uncertainty about how many people would end up going to The Hague. So that was a big issue for us to deal with. And our Congress passed a law that said that by March 30th or 31st or something of every year, my government had to issue a statement to our Congress saying that Serbia is complying with cooperation on the Hague Tribunal and the Dayton Peace Accords. And so that means that about a week before that deadline, I'd be going to see Zoran to go over what steps the government had taken, who they had extradited, to see that it would satisfy our government and Congress. And this was hard. So this was pressure. This wasn't partnership. This wasn't anything but pure pressure. A lot of other times on other issues, we would have a partnership. We would have an agreement. We would come to an agreement, and it would be fine. But on some issues, we did use pressure.
Of course, this was a unique situation at the time, definitely.
It was, but it was very, very difficult because it led to a great increase in Đinđić's unpopularity and a fall of popularity in the Democratic Party and in him that was underway when he was assassinated.
Absolutely. Now, in your book, you also write that the world of high politics is often even more dramatic behind the scenes rather on the public stage. What moment from your career best illustrates that hidden intensity?
Okay. So, Đinđić had arrested Milosevic, and his intent was to try him in Serbia for crimes that he committed against the Serbian people. And he reasoned that that would be more acceptable to the Serbian people, and they could see what he had done. And after 2 or 3 months, he came to me and said, we just can't do it, because he had managed to do everything in a legal way so that there was no way to prosecute him. So we'll have to find something else. So I went back to my government with a proposal that I'd put together on steps that we could take to help the Serbian government that we would do if Milosevic was indicted, sent to The Hague. And it was a long list of things. It included financial assistance, it included reducing the Serbian official debt internationally, more assistance, et cetera, a long list of things, because we looked at the government, and you had people like Labus, who was very interested in the financial situation and health of the country, and others like Đinđić more interested in the political stability. So our package included all that. And so I put together this package, and I took it to 3 people. I took it to Zoran first, and I took it to Labus second, and I don't know, I think it was Dmojsa Jovic the third, who was Deputy Prime Minister. And I said, this is what we can do. And a couple of days later, I got a call to come to Đinđić's office. And normally when I went to his office, we would have the official meetings outside outside his main, his personal office. But this time it was just the 2 of us, and he called me into his office. And we got into the office, and he picked up the phone, and he called Kostunica. He said, Montgomery is here. He wants an answer on the package and what we do. if you don't want us to go ahead, say so now. Just say no, and we won't do it. And this was on speakerphone. And there's total silence. And Zorana repeated, we have this package. Montgomery's here. He's standing here. All you have to do is say no, and we won't go ahead. There's just silence. Zorana waited about 30 seconds and hung up the phone and said, okay, we'll do it. That was our private moment that was special, and I'll never forget it.
And the rest was history after that.
Yes.
Now, another topic that also is pulling its roots all the way back from the 2000s is, of course, the topic of Kosovo. In your older book, When the Ovations Quiet Down, you talked about the negotiation process of the release of 150 Albanian prisoners and the complex coordination with UNMIK and international actors. How do you interpret the evolution of Serbia's domestic narrative around Kosovo since the early 2000s? Has it become more pragmatic, more entrenched, or even more performative?
I don't think that any Serb today, or few Serbs, accept the independence of Kosovo. I think that most Serbs think that Kosovo was part of Serbia that was arbitrarily taken from it. And they're unhappy about it. And our task is, and has been, to try to make this relationship work. I think we failed at this. I think that we perhaps gave too much influence or control to the European Union to have a dialogue. And they did have a dialogue. And they had a meeting in Brussels, as you probably know, and the Kosovo government made certain promises of things it would do that would help bring things closer together. The key one being the establishment of a community of Serbian municipalities. Because, as you know, there are places in Kosovo where a majority of the citizens are Serbs.
Serbian, yeah.
And they agreed to do it, and they've never done it. And Kurti has taken other steps that have to be seen as provocations. You're arbitrarily imposing a tariff, I think, of 100% on Serbian goods, banning the use of dinars, et cetera, a series of them, and not fulfilling the promises made by the old government. And we have done nothing. The West has done nothing except sort of beg him to do these things, and he hasn't done it. And the provocations, I believe, are designed just to provoke Serbia to take some sort of military step that then Kurti can use for his own benefit. That's what I believe. I may be wrong. But your government has wisely not taken the bait, hasn't done that. But we have not put any penalties on Kurti or the Kosovo government for the actions they have taken, the provocations, the promises that they made and haven't kept. And we should be taking strong action to stop them from doing these things, get them to implement what they've agreed to do.
I see.
Yeah.
Looking back, you said that the West failed in this regard. Why did this happen? Has the international community underestimated the internal political culture, not just here in Serbia, but in the region as well?
It's because we weren't willing to use force and pressure to influence events in the way that I've just mentioned. And also, I think that we are tied to the Dayton Accord and the Kumanovo Accord. And we're holding tight to both these things. And 30 years have now gone by since Dayton, 30 years, and still the situation is not resolved. And the same in Kosovo, still not resolved, still a potential source of instability and violence. And I just want everybody to really appreciate this is not working. I have offered one solution for these two cases, but it's only mine. And more than anything, I want others to think about this as well. What steps can be taken to improve this? Because neither situation is working. And it's dangerous. And unfortunately, there are so many crises in the world that our leaders are basically ignoring the situation in this region because of other concerns. And I understand, because dealing with either one of those in a serious way requires a real commitment and time. But I'm just warning that if these situations aren't corrected, it could be problems.
Your book closes where it began, in Belgrade.
Yeah.
What does that return signify to you, not just geographically, but emotionally and politically as well?
It was so important. It was so important to come back. And when I was in Zagreb before, and it was the night when this bombing campaign was going to start, I remember being at my office, 9 o'clock at night or something, thinking I might never see Belgrade again. That if we are bombing Serbia, I might never be able to go back. I might not be welcome. So it was a period of real sadness. And when I did manage to come back, and when we were back in the residence, it was a special feeling on the 4th of July. Yeah. Because I remembered, as a young diplomat, having just arrived, having no idea what I was doing, being with all these people outside on the 4th of July at the residence, standing under this one certain tree. And here I was back, and we had a great reception on the 4th of July, over 1,000 people. And there I was, standing under that same tree again. And it was a special feeling to be back, and a good feeling. And I have to say that what we're very grateful for is that in all the time that we have been in Serbia since then, my family and I, not to mention the American embassy, despite the feelings that the Serbian people might have about our policies and our failings in those policies, personally, we've had nothing but friendliness. And that's one reason why we keep coming back.
So some wounds can heal after all.
Well, I think these personal wounds can, and the Serbian people are very good at separating out personal feelings from feelings about a country.
Of course.
Which is nice.
Now, for the last question, if you had to pick one moment or one revelation or one behind-the-scenes drama from the book Undiplomatic Life to hook a curious reader, what would that moment be?
It would be the one I told you about, the one where I'm with Zorana Đinđića in his office, and he's calling Kostunica about the extradition of Milosevic, and there's just silence on the phone. That's the minute I really remember.
We can say that that silence speaks very loud even today.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Mr. Montgomery, thank you for taking the time off your day to speak to you. It was truly a pleasure.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
A našim dragim gledaocima hvala na pažnji. Gledali ste razgovor sa Vilijemom Motntgomerijom, bivšim ambasadorom Sjedinjenih Američkih Država u Beogradu i koautorom knjige Nediplomatski život. Ostanite uz nas jer dalje idu diplomatske vesti i diplomatski događaji.
Ambasadori, diplomate, političari, članovi kraljevske porodice Karađorđević, prijatelji i saradnici ambasade Španije svečano su proslavili nacionalni dan te kraljevine. Praznik se obeležava u znak sećanja na 1492. godinu, kada je Kolumbo dolaskom u Ameriku promenio svetsku istoriju, odnosno postavio temelje današnje globalizacije i otvorio novo poglavlje trajnih veza između Evrope i Amerike.
Zbog naklonosti i prijateljstva naroda u Srbiji, kao i zbog visokih letnjih temperatura, moram da kažem da se ovde osjećamo kao kod kuće. Španski jezik u Srbiji je jači nego ikada, a vredno radimo i na povećanju turističkog prometa u oba pravca. Politički, naše dve zemlje nastavljaju da grade čvrst odnos zasnovan na međusobnom poštovanju i uvažavanju, postičući sastanke i kontakte na visokom nivou kako bi se rešavali zajednički izazovi. U oblasti ekonomije i trgovine španske kompanije su već prisutne u svakodnevnom životu srpskih potrošača. Ostajemo ambiciozni u našem cilju da povećavamo španska ulaganja u Srbiji.
Ambasador je dodao da je Španija već potvrdila svoje učešće na događaju Expo 2027. Također rekao je da Španija nastavlja podršku teritorijalnom integritetu i suverenitetu Srbije u skladu sa rezolucijom 1244 Saveta bezbednosti Ujedinjenih nacija i čvrsto stoji uz Srbiju na njenom evropskom putu. Izložba instalacija Tentativo srpskog umetnika Mrđana Bajića i italijanskog vajara Giuseppea Pietronira otvorena je u italijanskoj ambasadi u Beogradu. Svečanost je otvorio Luka Gori, ambasador Italije u Srbiji, koji je istakao da italijanska ambasada uvek okrenuta umetnosti i kreativnom dijalogu.
Izložba Tentativo pokušava da nekako redizajnira klasični izgled rezidencije kroz susret i specifične izraze srpskog i italijanskog umetnika. Osim ove, preporučio bih još dve veoma lepe izložbe čijoj organizaciji smo doprineli. U Italijanskom institutu za kulturu možete pogledati izložbu Connecting New Generations, gde svoje radove predstavlja 5 umetnika iz Srbije i Italije koji su mlađi od 30 godina. Također u zavičajnoj kući u Zemunu aktuelna izložba barokne italijanske umetnosti iz galerije Borghese, gde su predstavljena platna trojice slavnih italijanskih slikara Gverierija, Rustičinija i Barbierija.
Postavku kustoskinje Nataše Radojević čine dva ključna dela. Pogledaj me Apolonovim očima i Rocking Doors, koji se razvijaju od radova manjih i srednjih formata ka centralnom delu rezidencije. Ljubitelji umetnosti mogu da pogledaju izložbu do 10. decembra. Povodom obeležavanja 80. godišnjice Dana nezavisnosti i Dana oružanih snaga, ambasada Indonezije u Beogradu organizovala je svečani prijem kojem su prisustvovali gosti iz javnog, poslovnog i diplomatskog sveta. Domaćin večeri bio je ambasador Andreano Ervin. On je nakon intoniranja himni Srbije i Indonezije podsjetio na istorijski kontekst okupljanja, a potom se osvrnuo na diplomatske odnose dve zemlje koji traju i unapređuju se od 1954. godine.
Naše zemlje dele istorijsku vezu zasnovanu na pokretu nesvrstanih, gde su se naši lideri ujedinili u unapređenju mira, suvereniteta i saradnje među zemljama u razvoju. Utemeljeno na međusobnom poštovanju, poverenju i razumevanju, partnerstvo Indonezije i Srbije je dodatno ojačano kroz obnavljanje zvanične razmjene na visokom nivou. Indonezija dosledno podržava suverenitet i teritorijalni integritet Srbije uz našu posvećenost međunarodnom pravu i povelji Ujedinjenih nacija.
Ambasador Ervin je dodao da je Indonezija vodeći trgovinski partner Srbije u jugoistočnoj Aziji, čineći više od 23% ukupne trgovine Srbije sa asocijacijom država jugoistočne Azije u prošloj godini. Brojne indonežanske kompanije uspešno posluju u Srbiji i doprinose njenoj ekonomiji, a važna mesta susreta su i međunarodni sajmovi u obe zemlje. Pored ekonomske saradnje, međuljudski odnosi, putovanja na relaciji Srbija-Indonezija i studentske razmene kroz stipendije dodatno jačaju partnerstva. Turistička prezentacija ponude Peloponeza, najvećeg grčkog poluostrva poznatog po bogatom verskom i kulturno-istorijskom nasleđu, održana je u rezidenciji ambasadorke Grčke Marije Levanti. Prisustvovali su je predstavnici medija, biznisa i turističke privrede Grčke i Srbije, koji su kroz kratke reklame, fotografije i filmove još jednom otkrili zašto je Peloponez rodno mesto svih početaka.
Zahvaljujući kombinaciji antičke istorije, vizantijskog i srednjovekovnog nasleđa, mnoge znamenitosti na Peloponezu se nalaze na UNESCO-voj listi svetske baštine. Tu su i zadivljujući prirodni pejzaži od planina do obala uz snažan fokus na grčku tradicionalnu gastronomsku i vinsku ponudu. Posetioci mogu istražiti arheološka nalazišta poput Mikene, Epidaurusa i drevne Olimpije, rodnog mesta olimpijskih igara, što predstavlja spoj drevne istorije i prirodne lepote.
Peloponez je popularna destinacija jer ima više od 300 sunčanih dana godišnje, veliki broj staza za planinarenje, biciklizam i penjanje po stenama i mogućnost za brojne aktivnosti na vodi. Prednost je i to što let iz Beograda do gradova u Grčkoj ne traje dugo, a osim vazdušnog putnici mogu stići drumskim i morskim putem, naveli su organizatori.